Hello everyone, I'm Simon and welcome back to more Magic the Gathering lore. For today's video, let's further discuss the developing storyline leading up to the battle for Zendikar. Currently we know that Jace and Gideon are finally returning to Zendikar after securing no further allies. Nisa Ravane is out forming her own army of elementals while the largest city on Zendikar, Seagate, has fallen to the Eldrazi. The story continues with Gideon and Jace's return to the slaughter at the Refuge. The pair make it back to Zendikar after what Gideon feels has been far too long. In truth, they've only been gone a few days more than he had expected. Jace had some work to finish up on Ravnica while Gideon was off seeing a healer for his previous injuries. This gave Gideon no peace, however, for when they planeswalked back to the refuge set up after the fall of Seagate, they found nothing but carnage. Bodies covered a great portion of the battlefield. Blood, fallen banners, and chalky corruption covered the rest. Many who survived Seagate found this camp to be their deaths. As the two planeswalkers are stunned by the devastation, they almost miss a group of Eldrazi spawn slithering right near them, ducking just in time to be unnoticed. Gideon hands Jace a sword he had found on the ground, just in case they needed to defend themselves. Jace isn't the fighting type, at least not by traditional means. Gideon may as well have been handing Jace a snake the way he handled it. This wasn't the time to fight, however. It was clear to Gideon that Jace was not a soldier. The Eldrazi would more than likely tear him apart should they get a hold of him. The Mind Mage was much too precious for such an end. They needed to escape, and possibly meet up with any of the survivors of the slaughter, assuming there were any. They spotted a ravine cut into the open cliff face. Surely, if anyone survived, they would make it up that ravine. They traveled and found the remaining survivors, stuck defensively above the top of the ravine. They were safe for the time, but Eldrazi were encroaching on their position. They had the strategic advantage, but were vastly outnumbered. Soon the Zendikari spears would falter. Gideon did what he does best, and charged into the mass of Eldrazi, sweeping scores of them away with his Surl. Through the sea of gore, Gideon felt Jace keeping in tow. Good, he couldn't slaughter all these Eldrazi while also babysitting Jace. They made it to the survivors' stronghold, and quickly Gideon lifted Jace up and over. Gideon took as many Eldrazi out as he could, but when a larger monstrosity showed up, Gideon found that a tactical retreat was a solid plan. The leader of the survivors and Gideon's old friend, Volric, had lived through the assault and now planned to lead his people out of the ravine. Gideon told Jace to retreat back to the other refugees and search for the merfolk Jorah N, the key to solving this puzzle of the ley lines. Gideon went back to killing as many Eldrazi as possible, hoping to give the camp the time it needed to leave the ravine. As battle became more and more tedious for Gideon, he decided to slowly start backing off from the thinning Eldrazi horde. As he made it to the end of the ravine, he whipped the sides of the cliff until the rocks fell and formed a natural wall against the Eldrazi. It wouldn't hold for long, but it was something. Once back with the remaining Zendikari, Jace approached, seemingly surprised at Gideon's survival. Jace informed Gideon that this Jorah N person was nowhere to be found within the camp. She never made it out of Seagate. There were rumors of a small party that broke off from the main group, trapped near the outskirts of the city, but if she were among them, then she'd surely be dead regardless. A commanding woman then made her way to Gideon. Her name was Tazri, the second in command to Volric. Volric also showed up. Although he was injured, he still commanded the respect of everyone, even planeswalkers like Gideon. The group was out of options. They needed to retreat further or else they'd die here in this gully. Everyone knew they couldn't stay. Defending their position wasn't realistic. But Gideon had no real love for the retreat plan either. They could never outrun the Eldrazi, especially with the number of injured who formed their ranks. Running would ultimately prove just as deadly as staying put. They were at a crossroads, but luckily, at that moment, Gideon looked up towards the sky and saw their salvation hanging in midair. It was a giant, floating hedron, those ancient structures which seemed to hold so much power over the Eldrazi. They had become iconic landmarks on Zendikar, and it now looked as if it could save their lives. It was a crazy plan, not many agreed it would work, but what better idea did they have? They would climb up and make camp on a floating hedron. It wasn't easy securing the ropes to make the climb. Only the most fit and healthy core of the company even dared this feat. Yet here they were, with everything and everyone prepared to make the climb. The core and their skill with hooks and ropes proved valuable as they were able to help the most injured survivors up with harnesses. Although this Hedron had brought them some safety, Gideon still couldn't let his mind off the thought of Jorah N. If she died, then all hope for Zendikar died with her. He had abandoned Seagate to find Jace and bring him back to Jorah N. If she was dead, then all their lives were lost for nothing. Their lives couldn't have been for nothing, they just couldn't. Despite everyone's disapproval, Gideon had made up his mind. He would return to Seagate and seek out this lost band of survivors and bring them back. If there were any justice left on this world, maybe, just maybe, Jorah N would be among them. And that's where we stand so far. The remaining Zendikari and Jace are sitting atop a floating Hedron while Gideon is off to, hopefully, find and rescue the merfolk, Jorah N. Let me know what you guys think of the story and the battle for Zendikar thus far. Leave it in the comments below. Also, you can find a link to the Uncharted Realms article which inspired this video in the description below. If you want to get the whole story, I really recommend reading those articles. In any case guys, if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, share, and subscribe to the channel. It goes a long way in supporting future content. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time.